Good morning. This is John from the Springs Mennonite Church, and I'm here today to finish up the week talking about God's greatness. And today I'd like to read a passage from Ephesians chapter 2, verses 19 and 20. And here's what it says. Paul is saying, I also pray that you will understand the incredible greatness of God's power for us who believe him. This is the same mighty power that raised Jesus from the dead and seated him in the place of honor at God's right hand in the heavenly realms. Well, Paul has made several statements here of what he's praying for. He started the church at Ephesus, and he had a real heart for them, and he wanted them to continue to be a really strong witness for what God had done. But he also knows that the people at Ephesus are people just like you and me, and they have their own issues and their own struggles, and they're living in the midst of a place that's not open, or I shouldn't say open, welcoming to the Christian ideas, and it can be a very dangerous time for many people who believed. And so he wants to emphasize something here that I'd like to end up this week talking about God's greatness with the same thought that God is always caring about you, and he's always working on your behalf. Now, here's what Paul says again. I pray that you, meaning you and me, will understand the incredible greatness of God's power for us who believe him. Now, there's several things in here. First off is to understand it, not to somehow say, maybe it's not there or maybe it is. He's trying to say, look, there is something here. And whether you see it or not doesn't change the reality that it's here. God's power is here. Now, when we demand that God's power work the way we want, when we want, yeah, we can get disappointed. And some people will say, well, see, it's not true. But that's not what's going on. God's power is all around us. And Paul wants the church folks in Ephesus to understand that. And so I share today to you, wherever you are in your walk of life, I want you to understand that God's power is right here. Now, what is that power? Well, it's power of incredible greatness. Incredible greatness, meaning that we cannot fathom how terrific it is. I give you an example, which is a really poor equivalent, but think about the flooding that's occurred around us, or maybe even in your area during these summer months. The water that came down from the sky has utterly destroyed all kinds of things. It's wiped out roads. It's totally obliterated concrete bridges. It has destroyed property, and several people have died because of it. Most people don't understand the incredible power of moving water. It only takes about an eighth of an inch thick deep of water for a heavy car to hydroplane. You add that to a foot or two or three or a raging river, and there's nothing that can stand in its way. Well, God's power is even more than that. And who is God's power for? It says God's power available for us who believe. Now, if you don't believe that God is God and you haven't asked him into your life, well, then this passage doesn't apply to you. Now, if you haven't believed, you certainly can. There's no problem in doing that. But for those of us who have invited God into our life, even if it's just in a very small way, even maybe a long time ago, God's power is there for you and for me to help us in all kinds of situations. Now, he goes on to say, and I think this is really neat, this is the same mighty power that raised Christ from the dead. Have you ever seen anybody raised from the dead? Now, I've seen some flowers maybe raised from the dead, but then they weren't totally dead. Once they're dead, you cannot add all the water and all of the fertilizer you want, and they're still dead. In order to go from dead to live requires an incredible something. The word power is what's used here. And Paul says that the power that is available for you and for me is the same power that raised Jesus from the dead. Now, think about what that means. If you've got a struggle in your life, if you've got something that's really hard to live with, I I'm not going to pretend that you don't think it's important or that it isn't. And I'm not going to pretend that it isn't serious because it probably is. And I'm sure it is. But compared to raising Jesus from the dead, your issues are not nearly that hard. And so we can live for those who trust him. You and I can live in any situation, in any experience, knowing that God's power is there wanting to help us. Now, maybe not the way we want God to help us, but to help us and define the way in life that he wants for you and for me. Well, think about it over the weekend. Hope you have a really great weekend. Weather's supposed to be pretty good, a little hot in places. If you have a need or a concern, let us know. We'll do whatever we can as fast as we can to help meet your need. Thanks so much for listening. I wish you the very best. I'll be back on Monday with some more thoughts.